Thank you for joining us today. We wanted to excuse the technical difficulties from prior. Apparently there was some audio music playing and it totally took away from the interview. So we're going to start from the top. Thank you for bearing with us. So Gavin, we're very glad that you could come make it with us here today. We thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Sorry
Thank
about that. So I just wanted to start off the interview, I guess, Gavin, kind of explaining your background here, kind of about your running mates and all that as well, kind of giving the whole, all the viewers kind of, who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we talked about earlier, my background is in both technology and politics. I'm at the intersection of both of those. I created OprahMachine.com, New Jersey's first statewide freedom of information portal where we publish public records and responses from all 21 counties in the state. And ultimately, our goal with that website is to make government more transparent and more accessible for every resident of New Jersey. I'm running for school board this year with Sonia Marcatello and Sal Armato. We have a team dedicated to reforming the Lacey School Board. There's been a lot of issues in terms of the way the board is governed, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. But a little background on my running mate, Sonia. She's the former school nurse of the Mill Pond Elementary School. Sal has been a basketball coach and CCD teacher in town. He's a business leader in the wireless industry. And, we're not politicians. We're three residents that are dedicated to making a fairer, more transparent Board of Education and giving our students the best education they can while being fiscally responsible.
I guess what I also want to really let the viewers know is about, we had a previous interview with you a few episodes ago. And I know you're a big advocacy of transparency within government. I just was curious, what sort of transparency do you see that you want to bring forth within Lacey's Board of Education?
Yes, absolutely. So all too often the problem with government on both the state and local level is that you've got this opaqueness in the decision-making process. They'll go behind closed doors, they'll hash everything out, and then they'll just take the vote in public, and that's how the decision's been made. And that's really not acceptable. We need the public to be aware of how their dollars are being spent. Sometimes the government will spend taxpayer dollars wisely, other times not so wisely, and we'll have these issues. But ultimately, it's transparency that allows citizens to effectively participate in democracy, because when you go to vote at the polls, if you don't have the best information available and you're not voting based upon that, you're really missing out, and that's how bad things happen in government. So specifically in Lacey, I think we really need to see more transparency of board committee meetings. Currently, our board committee meetings are closed to the public. They take place behind closed doors, and that's not acceptable, because in other boards of education, for example, Tom's River, their committee meetings are open to the public, and a lot of important things happens at committee meetings because they'll have a specific focus on policy or curriculum or one of those issues. So those are extra forums for residents to get involved. And under the establishment that's in charge in Lacey right now, the public is being shut out of those meetings. And I would like to change that if elected to the board. I think those committee meetings should be opened up to the public. I think in Lacey, for example, residents and even board members have been forced to file Oprah requests. Think about that. A board member couldn't even get documents that she needed to effectively exercise her oversight role, and she had to Oprah them, and she even had to do a GRC complaint to force the board to give her these records. So what we need to do is we need to see more proactive disclosure of bills, of vendor activity reports, of stuff like that. So I would like to see the school district create an open data portal similar to what the state has done with data.nj.gov, and then residents would be able to download and inspect all of these documents freely, and it would save the board time from having to respond to every single Oprah request if they would just proactively publish this information for the benefit of the board and the public.
Well said.
And speaking of the Open Public Meetings Act, we observed, the sheer violations of your public rights to address the board, make your public comments, and we saw time and time again you were interrupted and just talked over and just belittled like you had no value to the meeting there.
It was absolutely disgraceful the way that Mr. Giordano conducted that meeting. I don't know what sort of a meeting he thought he was running, but it's certainly not how I would handle it if I was sitting in his chair. Gaveling and shouting someone down. Public comment under the Open Public Meetings Act, it's required at these meetings. And that is an opportunity for the residents to speak out and raise their concerns with the board. And they are always quick to say, it's not a Q&A session, it's not a back and forth, it's not a debate. And, you know, they seem to be very selective in their enforcement of decorum rules for public comment. You know, he said at the beginning to keep comments respectful and be respectful of everybody's time. I think that video speaks for itself. He was not being respectful of the public. He was not being respectful of my time. I just wanted to raise an important issue regarding tax abatements for developers and the financial impact that that has on the district. In fact, it is an issue that he was made aware of. I did an Oprah request myself to review Mr. Giordano's emails regarding pilot and tax abatements, and I read about 30 pages worth of emails, and I did see that another board member was informing him about the pitiful numbers of revenue that we're getting from these development projects. And he was made aware of it. The emails are timestamped. They don't lie. Obviously, he isn't very concerned about it. And I think the biggest losers from that are the taxpayers and the residents of Lacey. Because if you look what happened in Waretown, just to the south of us, their school board and their school board president, they passed a resolution formally opposing pilot agreements. And what's happening, for the viewers at home that are not familiar with that, pilot is called payment in lieu of taxes. It's a tax abatement where the township committee can essentially wave a magic wand and exempt certain projects, typically redevelopment or affordable housing, from paying the regular property taxes that are assessed on every other property. Now, this is problematic because what ends up happening in most cases, not every case, and there's been some push to reform this at a state level, in many cases with pilot, the town government will pocket all of that revenue. They'll use it to plug holes in their own budget, and they won't do what traditionally happens with property tax revenue and split it with the county, the school district, if there's a fire district and other entities. So the township committee is the first to complain if there's another unfunded mandate from the state of New Jersey. What they did with this is create an unfunded mandate for the school district, because with these apartment complexes, there are children that are being placed into the school district. They're using the resources of the school district, but there is no revenue coming back into the district from that to balance that out. So my argument is, let's sit down and negotiate with the township. And I know these pilot agreements, they're already signed. It's a done deal. We can't stop that. But what we can advocate for is giving the school district their fair share of that revenue, because with the state aid cuts and the other threats to our budget, we cannot afford to lose one penny. And for the township committee to unilaterally be taking this money and using it for their own purposes and not giving the school district a cut, I just think that's unacceptable. And, you know, I am sad for the children of the Lacey School District as to why the board president, you know, if I'm wrong, he should have responded. Instead, he wanted to just shut down the debate and discussion, and I think that's conduct that's unbecoming of a school board president. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing that we want to touch was a former Board of Ed member who was voted out of office, Frank Polino.
Yes, that's an interesting situation. Yeah. That actually occurred at the same meeting. So for the viewers at home that are not familiar with this, we had another board member resign from the Lacey Board of Education because he kept missing meetings. It got to the point where he was missing so many meetings that he could be held in violation of state law and removed. The leadership of the board chose not to go down that route, and he ended up resigning on his own accord. You know, so I do give him credit for knowing when it was time to step aside. I think he did the right thing by resigning. And because he resigned when he did, it was too late to have a special election and put him on the ballot for this year. So what ended up happening is the board, among the 7 of them, they get to choose who to appoint to fill that seat. So that's what they did. I applied, several other people applied, and they ended up going with Frank Polino, who was a former member of the Lacey Board of Education. He's politically aligned with the majority. But what I find insulting about the manner that they did this, I think this was a sham process, because as they were going to vote, they told all the people that applied that are candidates that are going to be on the ballot that they would refuse to consider them for this seat just by virtue of the fact that we're candidates. So that seemed rather arbitrary. It seemed like the fix was in. And what I find most concerning about their choice of Mr. Polino is that Mr. Polino was voted out of office by the residents of Lacey Township. So among the handful of these board members, they decided amongst themselves to defy the will of the voters of Lacey Township and appoint someone that's aligned with them politically. I heard he was actually approached by them to apply for this seat. And I think, it's just truly unfortunate because I think the people of Lacey Township should have had a say in deciding who sits in that seat, not a handful of elected officials. It really should have been a decision made by the people. And I'm just hopeful that the voters of Lacey will see the truth of this and kind of read between the lines and see whether their interests are being represented by the powers that be.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Subject to transparency again, right?
that board is there to serve the public, not to serve themselves. They're not a self-serving board. At least they're not supposed to legally. They're supposed to serve the public. So I'm glad you raised that point.
And sometimes we seem to forget that. It's been said that we're here for the children, and we absolutely are. But I think a lot of the times individuals will conflate their own political self-interest with what's best for the students of Lacey Township. And that's something that has to end.
Indeed. So let me think what else. You had a theft with some of your campaign signage we were reviewing. Could you tell us a little bit more about what went on into that theft and why that took place?
Yes, absolutely. So, it's campaign season. People call it silly season. Nonsense tends to happen in the days leading up to November 5th. And what ended up happening, I placed a campaign sign at the corner of one of the intersections, not too far from my house, actually. And within 24 hours, it was gone, vanished. So what did I do? I replaced it with 2 more signs. And, just a day or 2 later, those signs disappeared as well. And, it really was odd because these signs were in the same neighborhood as the campaign treasurer of our opponents. And it ended up coming out once we reported the thefts to the police department. Lacey Police, they responded. They knocked on a few doors canvassing the neighborhood. And they actually ended up speaking with some of the neighbors that may have witnessed it. And it ended up coming out once we publicized it on our own social media channels that John Dodaro, their treasurer, was in possession of our stolen signs. Now, he claims that some other unidentified person took the signs down and somehow ended up throwing them on his lawn. And he found them, and then he put them in his garage. And there they sat. And we didn't learn of this until we reported it to the Lacey Police Department. So they conducted their investigation. They're supposed to be retrieving the signs from him, and they're going to bring them back. But it really is just unfortunate. I think we're all adults here. We're in a democracy. We're in a free country. Everybody can support who they want. They can put the sign up for whoever they want. If it's me, if it's the other side, that's great. That's their right under the First Amendment. But when people have to be so immature as to rip down the signs of somebody that they disagree with, I think ideas are more powerful than actions. If you disagree with our ideas, then state that and tell us why you're better. But to rip down the sign of somebody that you disagree with, it's childish, it's petty, it's immature, and we should be better than that. And we challenge the other side to condemn this behavior. I think anybody should be able to condemn thefts and ripping down signs. But so far they've been silent on that. And I think it's unfortunate. I think it's a poor example for the children and parents of Lacey Township. We really do deserve better than this.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a board of education. Educators serve the children, and a child could be looking up to this. I'm sure that some of the children in your town are following this election, and they see these antics. Some of them, might use the free will, saying, okay, this is wrong, but some of them, they might see this and just think this is all right. This is just another day in the life.
Absolutely. And, we've had students come into our campaign events. They've been sharing their concerns. I actually delivered a campaign sign to a student in Lacey, and within 24 hours, the student wrote back, and he said, Gavin, somebody overnight knocked this sign over. It was right on my front lawn, and it was knocked over. So ideas matter. Words matter. Actions matter. And what I would just want to say to, both my running mates and my opponents, the children of Lacey are watching. We need to set a good example for them. This type of behavior between what happened at the meeting, shouting people down, talking down to them, and then now this theft of signs and the immaturity associated with that, we need to be better than that. And this behavior has to stop. We need to set a good example for our children, and what's been taking place in the last few weeks hasn't been doing that.
I think another big issue that I kind of want to talk into is the idea of the conflict of interest that's going on in the Lacey Board of Education. Maybe you can explain or go into that a little bit more?
Yes, conflicts of interest are a very important issue in governance, not just at school boards, but at any other governmental position. As school board members, you hold the public's trust in the position that you sit in and in the actions that you take. And if you do anything that violates that trust or creates the appearance of impropriety, it's a very big problem. So when you're a school board member, you can't serve two masters. You can't serve both the people of Lacey and one of your relatives. It's been said that there is a good old boys club and a friends and family plan in Lacey Township. And that's unfortunate. If that is the case, I think that's a serious concern. And if there is any sort of unwarranted privileges being afforded to family members, that needs to be rooted out at the board level and even at the administration level if that's the case. But school board members in New Jersey, they're bound by something that's called the Code of Ethics for School Board Members. And it's all, a lot of common sense things like you won't use your privilege, you won't use your position to get unwarranted privileges for your relatives. You won't reveal confidential information. You won't, do all sorts of stuff like that that are prohibited. In Lacey, I'm not saying that we've had direct violations of this code, but there are many conflicted board members. So we have one board member, for example, that has a relative employed by the district. What does that mean? That means that she cannot vote on a lot of personnel matters, contractual negotiations. One of the most important things that a school board does is they negotiate contracts with the teachers' unions. So they have to be able to sit down at the negotiating table with these people, and they have to represent the best interests of the taxpayers and the residents of Lacey. If they have ties to the members of that union in their family, or they've personally been members, as some of the candidates have, then they can't do that, and they're disqualified from participating. And the most important job that school board members do, I want to be clear, school board members do not run the district day to day. They do not do the role of the administration. School board members set policy and they manage the budget for the district. So in that role, they hire, fire, and evaluate the superintendent. You can't do that if those actions are going to directly impact a family member of yours. That's a big problem, and it creates an unequal distribution of the work for other members of the board, and it really prevents the work of the board from being done in an effective manner. Now, I'll give you an example of this. When we had to pass the last teacher contract in Lacey, the board had to do something called invoking the doctrine of necessity. And that's a fancy legal term for basically saying all of our board members have conflicts of interest. We don't have enough people that are eligible to vote on this. So we're going to get special permission to break these conflicts of interest and vote when we normally should be prohibited by law from voting because we don't have enough people left to vote if we don't do this. That is a really pitiful situation to be in as a board, and I think it's a clear signal that we really need to get new people in office that are not conflicted and having their hands tied, because if we're getting board members that can't even do the job that they signed up to do in an effective manner, then the people of Lacey are getting a true disservice, and that really is problematic. Another example of conflicts of interest that we have, the school board attorney, Mr. Supsey, he has a wife that's employed in the district as a teacher. Now, I'm not saying there's anything nefarious there, but it creates a lot of potential sticky situations because as the board attorney, he represents the board, which could be adverse to the interests of the teachers union. They could be adverse to the interests of individual staff members. And I'm sure, if there were to be an instance that comes up with his wife, it would go to conflict counsel, it would go to the other labor attorney. But just by virtue of the position that he's occupying, it creates the potential for the public to wonder, what's going on here? Is this effective? And this has been an issue. There was an ethics opinion from the State Department of Education that touched on this. And it's been an issue that's been privately raised with several other school board attorneys. And when they heard about this, their heads were spinning. The fact that we could have, and his firm, Stein and Supsey, they've been in place for quite some time. I would just question, as a candidate for Board of Education, all the law firms that we have in New Jersey, all of the different attorneys that we could choose from, and we have to have somebody in there that has an employee married to the partner of the firm working in the very district that they're representing. I think that's a clear conflict of interest. I think it's something that the board should have tried to avoid. And if I'm elected, I think things are going to be very different.
That's a very good point. I think Obviously, all the things that you said are brilliant so far, and I appreciate you coming out and taking this interview with us. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I think the last bullet point that I really want to bring up is the ACLU lawsuit that occurred.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue because Mr. Supsey, who we just discussed, he is a major centerpiece of that. For anybody at home that's not aware of what happened in 2018, we had 2 students of Lacey Township High School, and these were good students. They were in honors and AP classes. They really, I think both of them have a bright future. And what ended up happening, we had this embarrassing violation of their First and Second Amendment rights and their rights to due process when they were suspended and they had the book thrown at them for simply doing lawful activity, and that's going to a gun range with their parents. They were supervised by their parents, and they happened to post a picture of themselves at this gun range. And the school district and the board and the attorney, they were trying to make them out like they were going to be the next school shooter or the Parkland shooter. And it truly was unfortunate because they jumped the shark on this and they violated the due process rights of these students. And now the ACLU, which is a very respected organization, they've taken up their cause. They've filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the Lacey Township School District. And, I have mixed feelings about this. One, I think these boys, they need an apology. They need to be made whole again. Their names need to be cleared because what happened was not acceptable. And as a board member, I will not stand by if something like this happens again. But secondly, because of the poor decisions that were made in this matter, now the taxpayers of Lacey are going to be on the hook paying. We're going to be paying to defend this litigation. We're going to be paying potentially increased insurance premiums if this ends up being settled in a way that's unfavorable to the district. And, it's bringing shame and negativity upon our district when if they would have just carefully evaluated these postings and maybe even just called them in and talked to them before running roughshod over their civil rights, maybe we wouldn't have to be in this position. And then to add insult to injury, Mr. Supsey, the attorney, he chose to lash out at members of the public that showed, it was record attendance at this meeting. We had people from all over the state that showed up at a Lacey School Board meeting to speak out about this issue and to criticize these actions. Mr. Supsey responds to them by calling them a chicken gallery. It was just total disrespect for members of the public. And, again, this didn't happen in a vacuum. This is against the background of how Mr. Giordano conducted that meeting, gaveling people, talking over me. This is a board that I think is out of touch with the community. They're out of touch with the needs of the public. And for them to just walk all over somebody's civil rights and then to minimize the people that show up to express their concerns, I think that truly is a sad day for Lacey Township, and we can and must do better.
Absolutely. I think the last thing that I do want to touch base on is kind of what segues us from this interview to hopefully our next with Kaysen, is the idea of taxpayers' money and things that are going on within the school district and board and all that. And I guess kind of for our viewers, kind of answering these questions of what are your plans that you can see some sort of change, like when you if you do become elected into the Board of Education, some things that you can change right away or some impacts that can be made, at least as far as budgeting or taxpayers' money and all that kind of stuff that is in your power?
That's a great question. So I will say from the outset, part of the challenge is that as one board member, you only get so much of a voice. You have to work within the committee structure. You have to work within the confines of the board. There's actually a thing in the Code of Ethics that says, I will not act alone. So as one person, you really do have your hands tied. But from day one, priorities that I would like to see implemented, we have to hit the ground running, fighting for our fair share of state funding. The school district that we participated in a group lawsuit with a few other districts, I'm not so sure that has been going in the direction that I think would be best for Lacey. So I think we have to evaluate our options with that. And we really need to make the public aware that if there are more cuts to Lacey state funding coming out of Trenton, there will be more cuts. If we have a gaping hole in our budget from this reduction in state aid, there's going to be people that lose their jobs. And I don't want to see that happen. I want to do everything in my power to prevent having to make those staff cuts because of the reduction in state aid. So we have to fight for our fair share of funding. And part of that is sitting down at the table with the township committee and negotiating for our fair share of that pilot revenue. There is no reason why the township committee should be unilaterally taking that entire slice of revenue. The school district should get a portion of that because it's an unfunded mandate for us when you have kids utilizing the school system from these apartments and no revenue from that is being put back into the school system to kind of offset that cost. The town government, they are the first to complain if there's another unfunded mandate from Trenton. But we've created another unfunded mandate right here on Lacey Road, and that is not acceptable. So we need to stabilize revenue and funding with that. Additionally, if I'm on the board, we need to have more transparency. What's going on right now, belittling people that have concerns about the school district, that is not going to fly if I'm on the board. I want us to see more proactive disclosure of public records. We could reduce the cost of responding to OPA requests if the school district would just proactively publish documents and records on their website, employee payroll information, bills, contracts, stuff like that, that the public should be the first to be able to see and let them decide, are their tax dollars being spent wisely? Are we getting a good value for our money? If we would have had more transparency, for example, with the solar panel project, the $19.8 million boondoggle that is still costing taxpayers to this day, where the board was found to have a lack of oversight by the state comptroller's office, we need board members that are going to be vigilant and watching the expenses and ledgers of the district. You can't just show up and read the agenda packet as you're getting to the meeting and vote yes on everything, because that hasn't been working for the past 2 decades in Lacey. It's time for a change.
Well said.
Thank you, Gavin, for coming
Thank
in.
you. Thank you so much for all those points.
Of really what's going on down there. For you folks at home, we're going to take a quick ad break. When we return, we're going to have Cason Little join us via telephone and voice his concerns on his district in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and how it co-aligns with the issues going on in Lacey. Stay tuned.
Stay touched, everybody. See you soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with all our live coverage and news blasts by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. You can find us at Eyes on New Jersey. Also, be sure to check out our website at eyesonnewjersey.org. You can find breaking content, explore archived articles, subscribe to our mailing list, interact with other viewers, and enable push notifications for all your devices. Eyes on New Jersey is an Edmonds production filmed at JLK Media Studios in Dunellen, New Jersey. Be sure to stay up to date with all our live coverage and news blasts by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. You can find us at Eyes on New Jersey. Also, be sure to check out our website at eyesonnewjersey.org. You can find breaking content, explore archived articles, subscribe to our mailing list, interact with other viewers, and enable push notifications for all your devices. Eyes on New Jersey is an Edmonds production filmed at JLK Media Studios in Dunellen, New Jersey. Be sure to stay up to date with all our live coverage and news blasts by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. You can find us at Eyes on New Jersey. Also, be sure to check out our website at eyesonnewjersey.org. You can find breaking content, explore archived articles, subscribe to our mailing list, interact with other viewers, and enable push notifications for all your devices. Eyes on New Jersey is an Edmonds production filmed at JLK Media Studios in Dunellen, New Jersey. Be sure to stay up to date with all our live coverage and news blasts by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. You can find us at Eyes on New Jersey. Also, be sure to check out our website at eyesonnewjersey.org. You can find breaking content, explore archived articles, subscribe to our mailing list, interact with other viewers, and enable push notifications for all your devices. Eyes on New Jersey is an Edmonds production filmed at JLK Media Studios in Dunellen, New Jersey.
Thank you for joining us again, folks. So we're going to be moving forward with discussing the events that have unraveled in the city of Elizabeth, New Jersey, and this is in regards to the 8-year-old special needs student that suffered some minor injuries on her first day in school. Now, we have here a statement from the superintendent of the school district, Hugelmeyer, which Jordan is going to read for you.
A third-grade special needs student in a multiple disabilities classroom received minor injuries as a result of the actions of another special needs student. Hugelmeyer said, the two students, who were both non-communicative, were experiencing their first day of school in an unfamiliar classroom environment with an unfamiliar staff members. Immediate and appropriate action was taken by school staff in accordance with established protocols following the incident. Children with multiple disabilities, in addition to their own personal challenges in assimilating to their environment, present unique challenges to both parents and educators. Elizabeth Public Schools takes pride in employing staff members that undergo an extensive professional development and training to address these challenges in a compassionate manner while providing a safe learning environment for students and staff. The incident has been referred by the school's administrative staff to the district's Department of Special Services, which is reassessing the individual needs and appropriate placement of the students involved based on the new information ascertained as the result of this incident. Terrible.
I mean, that just sounded like a boilerplate statement. I mean, there was no emotion in that. There was no sense of apology that was issued. It was just...
No empathy.
No,
it just
zero empathy.
Lacked empathy. I mean,
absolutely.
It just, this kind of incident or this kind of situation really gets my blood going. This is something that I am very passionate about. I have some personal experience in this. I have a cousin who's autistic that had kind of this difficulty speaking. He wasn't very, it's not that he couldn't speak, but he just wouldn't speak until a certain age. And there was also some things going on where he was getting bullied. He was having things, kind of like this subject of all this kind of negative behavior within a classroom. And it seemed like their Board of Education in his school is kind of similar to this. And for me, it just kind of reminds me of a familiar incident that I've gone through in my own history, in my own experience. And this is the kind of thing that really gets me upset, especially when these students are not that they need special attention. I don't think that they deserve to be ostracized any shape or form in the school, facet or the school kind of environment. But these are kids that are, that they need attention. They need this help or whatever guidance they can get, whether it's from, certain classroom helpers or teachers or whoever it may be. And that to me it just bothers me when just individuals don't take responsibility for actions or show some sort of emotion like, hey, look, we screwed up on our end. We're so sorry. We're going to make sure that we put money and dump money into extra care, more people, more employ more assistants to make sure that situations like this don't happen. Kids are supposed to feel safe in school, not feel bullied or beat up or whatever the situation may be, regardless of their deficiencies, whatever they have. This is a school is supposed to be safe. Kind of going back to our last episode where we interviewed Defend a Pack, who happens to be a company that makes backpacks that turn into Kevlar vests for students. And it's sad that it's come to that kind of conclusion where it's like, hey, we have to employ our students, every child that goes to school now, with a Kevlar vest. Well, you're going to take care of all that. And I'm not downplaying school shootings at all. I'm not here to justify any actions by that. I'm just simply saying that if you're here to kind of prevent bullying and not putting money into the taxpayers for having extra people and extra staff that go involved with school, then what are you doing? That's on you. That's on you as a school district, and that should be something that should be taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, it was reported that 80 parents had actually attended the Board of Education meeting that took place, I believe it was about a week ago. And this was 80 parents that came into attendance concerned about this topic. And a bunch of them approached the podium and delivered their messages in public comments with real passion and real emotion. One girl traveled all the way up from Washington, D.C. to attend a school board meeting where she'd be granted 3 minutes. This girl probably made about 4 hours of travel to deliver 3 minutes of public speaking time. That's all she was allotted. And it just goes to show how people are really bothered by how the administration handled this incident, and how they're not really addressing it much at all. I mean, after this meeting took place, during the meeting, after the public comment took place, they went into closed session for a little over 4 hours. At the start of the night, 80 people were in the event. By the end of the night, 8 people remained. They resumed session at 10:54 in the evening, when other parents who were still there spoke up for their concerns. Mr. Casey Little was one of them. He addressed the board, and shortly after he delivered his speech, they were all shown the door and locked out of the facility.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous what happened to them. Yeah.
I mean, if an incident like this happened in your school district in Lacey Township, where there's a special needs student or any student, is injured while they're supposed to be getting an education, and it comes to this, like what actions do you think you would take
I think that's outrageous. I mean, it's clear what they did. I think in this instance in Elizabeth, I think they abused executive session. Executive session is only supposed to be used for limited number of things. Now, if they are discussing an individual student, it would be appropriate to address that during executive session. But to have multiple hours behind closed doors, I think it's very easy for the public to read between the lines and see they did this as a stall tactic to run out the clock, to kind of have this war of attrition to make people get tired and have to go. And this is the problem. A lot of the times boards will play games with the timing and scheduling of meetings because they know most people have a 9-to-5 job. They can't afford to be there till 11 o'clock. They've got a family to feed. They've got bills to pay. And it's something that's anti-democratic. It really is trying to shun the public and stop public participation. And, going back to your earlier points, Jordan, these students, these special needs students, they are voiceless. The administration and the staff, they need to be the voice of these students because they can't speak for themselves. And when they fail to do that, they're derelict in their duty. And I think for them to abuse executive session in such a manner, I think is truly unacceptable. And I think the voters of Elizabeth should remember that when they go to the ballot box and see, is this the representation that's representing the best interests of the public and the students? And I think, as was shown at that meeting, they're clearly not, especially that 3-minute limit on public comment. They were considering we currently don't have a limit on public comment in Lacey, but after that meeting where Mr. Giordano trampled over people that were trying to speak, now they also have talk of trying to implement such a limit in Lacey. And when boards go down that path, what they did in Elizabeth and what they're doing in Lacey, shutting out the public isn't going to fix the problem. It's just going to move the discussion onto social media, to independent media and other outlets, and it's going to deprive the board of the opportunity to hear from the public. Unfortunately, maybe that's what they're looking to do in these instances.
That's what it seems like, at least.
Yeah, I mean, people who did have that 3-minute limitation at the public comment speak to Elizabeth, individuals, members of the public who addressed the board in favor of the board, when they hit that 3-minute mark, I counted a number of instances where their microphones were kept on and they were able to continue on for a few seconds. Whereas when members of the public who approached the board to speak and they hit that 3-minute mark, that mic went off like that.
And that's just like what happened in Lacey, where we had the president saying everybody needs to be respectful and mindful of time. Certain people he didn't interrupt. When people brought legitimate concerns for us, he grabbed that gavel and he was shutting down debate and discussion. And it really does a disservice, not just to the public, but to the entire school community when you have these rogue boards that go and they veer off into their own direction instead of doing what's right. And it's truly unfortunate. And that's all too much of the problem in New Jersey government. And, kudos to you guys for being a voice against that and exposing this, because I think when the public gets to objectively see how some of their public officials are behaving, I think they might want to vote really differently in November and maybe have a change of leadership.
We're hoping that we can kind of implement that, or at least give some sort of change, or feed people something, in order to make a change, a positive one, hopefully at that.
Absolutely.
I know that we have a clip. I'm not sure. Do we want to try and play it of a code of something that took place in Elizabeth that I kind of want our viewers to hear about?
Yes, folks. Bear with us. We're going to try and play a clip for you. Stand by.
Have been the only thing that the parent or the family would have wanted was just simply an apology letter, just so it can show that you are taking ownership and saying, yes, we've done something wrong. Let's move past that and let's work towards on doing something right. Because at the end of the day, we only not have Emily, the student in our district, but we have another 29,000 students. And like I said in my letter that I sent to all of you, and please don't say that you received it, because I got confirmation that you did receive it. And I was just hoping for also a response, but that's okay. We just have to protect our kids. I think that should be the ultimate goal, is to not only make sure that they receive a quality education, but to also make sure that their safety and their well-being is put first at the top priority as always. Like literally as a daily goal. That should be our goal as a district. Is to protect and defend our students at all times, not mistreat and neglect our students, especially neglect them from educational services that they are subjected to receive. Federally mandated. So again, I really hope that you do issue an apology letter to the public, especially to the family, because I believe they deserve one. They send each and every parent send their kid to school in hopes that their kid will come back home the same way that they had arrived to school, the same way that they had left their home in the first place. So again, we call this incident minor situations, and we're all silent, we're all mute. Like I have 5 hairs on my shoulders. I really, truly hope that you do, again, send out an apology letter to the family, most importantly to inform the public that it was not a minor incident. That's all I ask for you. Thank you and have a great evening.
Next up, Ms. Maria Echeverria.
Hello, my name is Maria Echeverria. Throughout the years, I have sent this district and came up with ideas, and no one's really kind of going forward with anything, and I really think you need to listen to the parents. I know I've sent this district,
Hey, Kason, how you doing?
Let's say something on CBI, okay? I've sent
It's
this
okay, not a
district
problem.
something on, I know I mentioned CPI. I know I've mentioned, what else? There's just been so many things. I know that we do need a special needs school in Elizabeth. I know you guys are going to say no because you're saying, that's discrimination or whatever the case is, segregation or whatever it is, and you can't do that, but you guys are segregating anyway, and you just aren't seeing it. You guys are segregating the gifted and talented schools from the other schools to the special needs kids. You are doing it because what special needs kids is being proactive in Elizabeth, in sports or anything else, or after school programs like that, whatever.
So, folks, we have here the Elizabeth Board of Education candidate, Kason Little, on the phone, who'll be joining us live. Good afternoon, Kason. How you doing tonight?
Not a problem. Good to hear from you, Kason. Sorry, we've been trying to play a little game of tag over here.
I know, man. You was busy, I'm busy, but I'm glad that we finally connected.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Everything's great. Thank you.
Great. Also on set, I want to introduce you. We have Gavin Rozzi he's in the Lacey Board of Ed, or a candidate for the Board of Ed. I'm sorry.
I will be soon.
Yeah.
Hey, Kason.
Can you guys hear me? Your phone is breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you fine. I'm not sure if you can hear us.
I can't. Say something else. Let me see if I can hear you.
Okay. Hear me now or no?
Okay, yeah, that's better.
All right. That was just Gavin saying hello to you.
Can you hear Gavin now?
Hello, Gavin. How are you?
Hey, Kason, thanks for joining us. It's good to hear from you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
All right, so Kason, we were actually discussing some of the events that unfolded at that recent Board of Education meeting regarding the discussion of that poor 8-year-old girl that was a victim of that violence attack in the special needs class.
Yeah.
Can you tell, we already advised some of our audience about what transpired the night, but could you give us your opinion or your firsthand experience on how that night transpired and how you felt it was handled by the board?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so I think it was handled by the district, the superintendent and administration very poorly. The superintendent has a long history of not being proactive. Instead, she rather choose to be reactive on situations and say, the district takes pride in, hiring teachers or training teachers. The thing is, in my opinion, our teachers are not the problem. It's the system as a whole. Now, we have many amazing teachers, that I can truly attest to the fact that they are very passionate. They care so much about our children, and they ask for support from the district constantly. Now, these same teachers who, refuse to sit idly by and let their children fail by not, advocating for their students to receive the services that they are subjected to receive, our teachers are constantly getting suffering retaliation and discrimination from the district. The district is continuously setting our teachers up to fail because the fact that our teachers speak truth to power and speak up for our students, like I said, regarding the services that they are not receiving. But pertaining to this case, with this student, the superintendent actually exposed the entire. Now I know that there's a confidentiality breach when, in a letter, a superintendent states what the classroom environment is like, if students are communicative or non-communicative, if students are verbal or nonverbal. That is exposing and dispelling the entire status of the educational needs of our students, which is a confidentiality breach, which I spoke in front of our board. How dare you do that? The parent have not gave a written consent notice to the district stating that it's okay for them to do that. Yet the superintendent, with a reactive approach, she's done so anyway. And so, again, myself, now pertaining to that board meeting, myself and other advocates like Christina Marrera, Maria Lorenz, and a few others, and even new parents that came to the board meeting for the first time, which I'm very proud and glad to say, because, again, it will always be the same, 2 or 3 or 4 of us that will be attendance at every board meeting. And I say all the time, this board needs to see new faces instead of the same faces and hearing the same voices. So while we waited to the second meeting for us to leave, the board went into a private session for about 4.5 to 5 hours long for their private session. And that was a part of the first meeting. They had us wait over 4 hours long. Now, let me just say this on the record and ear, that this is not nothing new. The board have been doing this for nearly almost every scheduled meeting basis, and they have continuously gotten away with it because of the fact that it's only 2 or 3 of us that hold them accountable at every single scheduled board meeting basis. So, they're like, oh, here comes Kason again. We don't care what he says. So here comes Christina again. We don't care what she says. And that's why it goes with the tool of empowerment. I try very hard to empower our community. Like, you have to get involved. You have to attend these meetings because every scheduled meeting basis, the changes that they vote on affects and impacts our entire community in some way. So it's crucial that you attend our board meetings so you can give your say and just to simply be involved. So, I spoke at the meeting. The board president cuts you off at approximately 3 minutes. She doesn't allow you to say, in closing, I'm finishing up my remarks. She just cut you off at approximately 3 minutes, and the mic goes off. And again, she's been doing that at every board meeting as well. We spoke about that a number of times. Nothing happened. I've sent number of letters regarding that. Nothing happened. And again, the community is outraged. They're outraged because of the careless leadership that is being shown by the current Board of Education and current superintendent and administration. Again, we need to hold our elected officials accountable. Most importantly, our elected officials need to hear from the community, who the community have voted to put them in office. And we have to continue ensuring that they are, representing and serving our children's best interests at heart. Not about themselves, not about who donates to their campaigns, not whose family or who's related to who. Because, again, that's the power of nepotism and corruption, and that has no room in our district or anywhere. I know this is a nationwide thing, but it has got to go. It has been many, many years in our district. It has been many, many years throughout this nation, and we cannot afford to continuously allowing nepotism and corruption to sit idly and to sit comfortably in our school district, knowing that our kids are failing by not receiving the best educational services that they are subjected to receive.
Kason, that was very well said. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir. I have a quick question. So I was hearing that long 5-hour Board of Education meeting, and I noticed that one of the women had spoke about a code that seemed to disappear within the law or some sort of law book or whatever it may be. It's 6171.4. I don't know if you can explain to us or elucidate kind of more onto the subject of that for our viewers.
Do you know what? I just have to hear a little more about what that code was. Do you know? Did she reference what the code was exactly?
It was something in the sense of like it disappeared from her conduct, and it had to do with disability of, or I'm sorry, the fact that they're asking low-income housing and low-income families for disability. No, am I wrong?
No,
I'm
no.
sorry.
This was the code for disability this woman spoke of.
Right. I'm
And
sorry.
she said the language of it was removed to basically, instead of helping people, in fact hurts them. And this was, and she rose awareness on this at the meeting. Did you happen to hear when she spoke on that?
I'm pretty sure that I was there, but I'm just not recalling for some reason. So I'll have to go back and reach out to that person and see exactly what code that was. I know, I believe it's the same person who stated that this board, this current board, had the nerve to ask low-income community, low-income community, for school supplies, to donate school supplies. Is that correct? Is that the same person that you're referencing?
that was our next follow-up for that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's when I got the two confused a little bit.
And just so you know, that's the current incumbents who are seeking a re-elect seat, which is, the mayor's controlled team. Now, just so you know, we have 100% mayor control board. The mayor has, complete power in our school district. He selects. And now, here's my thing. I don't call it elections anymore. I just think elections are unfair today. So I call it selections, because we select people, meaning the mayor, and people in power. We select the people, those who we want to fill that seat so they can vote our way or vote the way that I want them, because that's the way that, it's at the best interest of me, myself, but not at the best interest of the community. And that is the mindset of what this current mayor has. And this is why he has the power right now in our school district, because, again, he has a 100% mayor control board. So that's just to give you guys a little update or, feeling about that. It's so horrible.
Thank you, Kason. Now, we were also watching, the events unfold for that meeting, both on the Board of Education live stream and on your live stream. We also saw a photo. It looked like it was taken by one of your one of the members in your congregation there. It appeared to show you guys were actually locked out of the premises. So I'm putting the picture up on the screen now so our viewers could see.
Yes. So I can tell you some information about that. So the second meeting has finally happened. And again, we spoke again. And I recall speaking to the superintendent, how she failed to issue an apology in her reactive letter. And so I've always stated this a number of times, that if elected officials can't take criticism from the public, then you have no ground in elected office or in leadership. If you cannot take corrective criticism, or if you cannot take the truth, of what we have been spoken about a number of times, then how do you feel that a leadership position is for you? So pertaining to that, again, the same group of us, myself, Stacy, Maria, two Marias actually, we spoke again that next meeting. And we all spoke about how, like I said, the superintendent failed to be proactive. And so while we were speaking, we were outraged. We wanted answers. We wanted an issued apology letter. And we wanted the district to simply take ownership and admit their mistakes, right? And so I recall the director of security escorted us out and said that we had to go. And so while we went out, and mind you, the meeting was still going on. That's when the second meeting had just happened. While we were going out, they locked the door. Once they escorted us out. And then after they locked the door, then they locked the gate on us. And I said, wait a minute. The meeting is still going on. Not only have you locked the gate on me, a candidate for this office position, but you've locked the gate out on our parents. And when you lock out our parents, you lock out our students as well. Because we lock out our students through our parents. So how dare you do that?
Wow.
Okay, that was wrong on so many levels. And not only was it wrong, it was illegal. It was in violation of several things. It was in violation of civil rights. It was in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act. It was in violation of OPMA. It was a violation of this. It's a violation of a number of things, a number of ordinances, a number of policies and laws. But yet, this board attorney does not advise this current board very well. It advises this board very poorly, and it advises this board politically on what's at the best interest of them, again. So, which is wrong, and that's really a disservice to our entire community. And again, I've been speaking about this since I was 15 years old. I've been speaking about this since I was a freshman in high school because I was the only student that would be attending board meetings, speaking truth to power, advocating for our entire community, advocating for the students and their educational needs. And, of course, the concern would be swept into the rug and placed on the bottom of the district's priority list, which is very sad.
Yeah, extremely.
And so when they locked the gate out on us, I sent another letter to the superintendent and to the entire board stating now that you owe the public an additional apology for locking us out of this public meeting, which my mom and the rest of the taxpayers pay taxes for. We pay taxes to not only receive a well-rounded education and quality education here in the city and for the students too, but also to be informed and to be included and to know what's going on. So it's horrible. That's just some information regarding that, man.
Oh,
thank you
very
so
well
much,
said.
Kason. Yeah, thank you for explaining that whole situation and kind of letting our viewers know everything about
It needs to be exposed. Yes.
We wish you the best of luck. Unfortunately, with time constraints, we have to kind of cut the interview a little bit shorter than what we wanted it to kind of go. We wish you the best of luck, though, in the candidacy, and hopefully we'll see you on the Board of Education as soon as possible, because Elizabeth seems like it needs some change, and you seem to be the right candidate for that. So we appreciate you coming. We appreciate you coming out and kind of having this interview with us and taking your time. And you know, even though we played some phone tag with you, it was extremely nice of you to take some time out of your busy schedule. We know you have a lot going on over there. So thank you again, Kason.
Thank you, Kason.
Good luck, Kason.
All right, well, folks, you heard it from Kason Little of Elizabeth, New Jersey, Gavin Rossi of Lacey Township, New Jersey, both young millennials advocating for significant change within their school boards. And, you know, we wish them both the best of luck, and we hope to see them do some great things in office.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on the
Thanks,
show.
Gavin. Appreciate it so much. You've been great. As always, I'm Jordan Kalmowitz.
I'm John Edmonds. Have yourself a great night.
And we'll see you soon, everybody. Stay tuned for one of our next episodes coming up soon. Take care.
Eyes on New Jersey, an Edmonds production.